Good evening, Mark.
Thank you for joining Mayor Alan Allman and the City of Hapeville City Council in a town hall meeting focusing on traffic issues. So I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's 7 o'clock, so I want to be very respectful of everyone's time. Your participation is invaluable to helping to garner important insight related to these issues. Hapeville is a growing city with a residential makeup of approximately 6,800 and over 5,000 visitors throughout the weekday. Our geographical footprint is about 2.5 square miles while being bordered by two major interstates, I-75 and I-85, with Highway 1941 that runs through the city. As a result, the ability for residential streets being used as a cut-through, an increase in vehicular traffic, as well as the potential for increased speed can be evident. The City of Hapeville continually strives to strengthen and protect its neighborhoods by improving the quality of life in residential areas. Traffic conditions on residential streets can greatly affect neighborhood livability. Speeding traffic in neighborhoods can create safety hazards on residential streets as well as business streets. When the perception of traffic problems become a daily occurrence, our sense of community and personal awareness and well-being could potentially be threatened. Moreover, it is hoped that this town hall meeting will provide a platform to identify, determine, and prioritize traffic calming needs and alternatives, because traffic safety is always our concern. Again, thank you for your participation. To Eric Robinson from the University of Georgia Carl Vinson Institute of Government will facilitate this evening's meeting. Mr. Robinson has been with the Institute of Government since 2006. He currently serves as the Management Development Associate, providing management and leadership development instruction to state and local government elected and appointed officials, as well as other customized training and planning retreat facilitation. His previous experience includes serving as Director of the Georgia Senate Research Office, where he provided research and information to Senate officials and addressed inquiries from constituents and other organizations. He is a current member of the University Council of the University of Georgia. His areas of expertise consist of leadership and management, development, ethics, and planning. The Hapeville elected officials today are Mayor Alan Allman, Council members Travis Horsley, Mark Adams, and Chloe Alexander. Unfortunately, Alderman Mike Grass is absent this evening, but he sends his regards. And the Hapeville's traffic engineer is Chief Rick Glavasset. Please welcome tonight's facilitator, Mr. Eric Robinson.
Good afternoon, folks. How you doing?
Good.
Since I'm from UGA, you don't gotta say go dogs. I know there's more folks out there, but that's okay, okay? There's a lot of people here. Thanks for coming out. Thank you all for inviting me. I want to go over a couple of things so everybody will know what's happening, because there's a lot of people. There's a lot of moving parts, so I kind of like to outline what we're going to be doing today. Is that okay with y'all? Okay, so on this big screen over here, all right, we've done the kind of welcome and introductions. I'm going to go over the agenda and kind of what the logistics look like, okay? Can everybody kind of see that? And I'm going to be talking about it too, so I'm walking over here by it. Then we're going to talk about why are we here, our meeting goals, and what's our purpose. We're going to go over the city overview and initiatives by the traffic chief. We'll talk about that. And at that point in time, what we're going to do is give you all a chance to have feedback too, okay? So here's the short story. He's going to give you an overview of what's going on and what initiatives are going on. Then you all will have a chance to give your voice. There's a survey that you will fill out. It's very short. And tell, it's going to rank what the traffic issues are. Each person's going to get a survey. Then after that, you guys will be put in groups, and you'll get a chance to write down some of the things you suggested solutions, okay? What I'll do after that is I'll gather all that information and write up a report, and we'll tie it in a nice neat bow, okay? All right, so how does it really look? All right, you can't see that, so I'm going to go, well, I can't see that. I need to go back to my optometrist. Some of y'all probably can, so I got to get a little closer. All right, so meeting goes, so about 7:15, we're gonna have our traffic engineer come up, and he's gonna give you an overview and initiatives what's currently going on in the city. After that, you guys will have a short 10 minutes to give him some questions and answers, right? Because you need to know about the initiatives, but you may have some questions about what's going on. We want you to have a clear understanding of what's going on in your city, so he will take some questions. That's all right with you, Chief? You'll take some questions, okay? You'll take some questions, so everybody be clear. All right, after that happens, you guys will fill out your survey. It's a short survey. It has like maybe 5 issues on there and another issue you can add. You'll rank what's the most important issue in your neighborhood. After that happens, I'll put you in groups. And the groups will be folks who live on the east side of Dogwood Drive. That's the big street, right? And then the folks who are on the west side of Dogwood Drive, right? Because some issues might be slightly different on each side of the street, right? So you'll be with the group that deals with your neighborhood and your issues, and that's where you'll have your conversations and come up with solutions. And after that, you'll report out to everyone so we can all hear what you said, okay? All right, so without further ado, all right, why are we here tonight? That's a big question, right? Why are we here? All right. Well, working together is the main thing. That's what I see town halls as, working together. So we're all working together, and I'm helping, I'm an outsider, but I'm helping work with you all in the council to share information, because this is really what it's all about, sharing information, right? But in sharing that information, you'll hear a presentation on current traffic issues and initiatives. You've got to know what you're dealing with, right? After that, you'll rank the issues that most concern your neighborhood. And like I said, you'll be split up in groups of east and west. And last but not least, you all will discuss your current traffic issues and provide feedback to the council. Okay. So, there's a couple little ground rules. People know who Aretha Franklin are, right? They know who she is, right? You see the respect up there? That's pretty much it, because we have a lot of people in here. So responsibility is the people of Hapeville, the citizens and the staff and the council's responsibility. Have empathy, understand, they need to understand your perspective, you need to understand their perspective, and the folks on the east side need to understand the folks on the west side's perspective. So have empathy each other, self-discipline, and share airtime, because we've got a lot of folks in here, so make sure everyone gets a chance to talk, right? You all showed up, so everyone has something important to say, or you wouldn't be here. All right, so participation is key. That's going to come after the presentation. Your participation is a must. You guys are very enthusiastic. Matter of fact, I came over here and I said, man, you guys got a big crowd. Did I not just come over a few minutes ago? So I think we can check the box on enthusiasm. Look around. Look how many people are here. I think we got that one covered. And so there's going to be a lot of cooperation. Last but not least, let's trust the process, okay? And in simple terms, the process is they decide to have a town hall meeting, you're going to get information, you're going to get a chance to have input, and that's the full circle right there. All right, so why am I here? Well, keep the conversation focused when you all get in groups. I'm here to keep the conversation focused. Make sure everyone is heard. If you have something to say, make sure everyone is heard. Keep a written record of consensus agreements. So when you guys come up with things that, when you write down on this flip chart paper, some of the solutions you think needs to happen, I need to keep a written record of that. Help the group work toward consensus. If you all get stuck in your groups, I'll be around to float around and see if I can help and lend a helping hand. All right, answer questions if I can. And last but not least, I didn't wear my striped shirt tonight. Every time I do a town hall or I do a retreat, I wear a striped shirt because referee needed. I don't think I have to do that tonight. I'm taking a guess, but the tie's kind of striped, so it's kind of there, right? Kind of got my stripes on. All right, so are there questions about the process at this point?
You're taking too much of our time.
Okay, good. All right, so let's all stay focused. Anybody see what's going on in here in that picture? Say it louder. There's a fox and he's in the middle of a bunch of hounds, right? And they're supposed to be hunting foxes, right? So let's just stay focused on what's going on. Some folks are starting to see, I hear some giggling. Ah, you cracked on Georgia, there you go. All right, so let's just stay focused on the issue at hand, okay? That's all I ask. There's some great things that come out of these type of meetings. I like doing them. I was hyped about it, and I'm still hyped about it.
You definitely are.
All right, so without further ado, I'll bring up the traffic engineer for his presentation, sir. If you like this or you want to go here, whichever one you want like to do. Absolutely. Let's give him a hand, dog.
Well, thank you, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Rick Levisak again. your chief of police here in Hapeville. And as such, I am also your traffic engineer. Now, that's not to say that I have an engineering degree or that I'm honestly the traffic guru. But what I am, in charge of the police department, we obviously deal with a lot of traffic issues around the city. We're the ones who you call when you have a traffic issue. We're also being proactive, and we're doing the things that we can do to make sure that everybody is safe. So with that, I want to bring you a couple of statistics. So over the last year, from January till now, we have had a total of 268 traffic accidents. Now, of those 268 accidents, about a quarter to maybe half are private property accidents. And those would be those wrecks that are either in your yard or possibly in a parking lot, something like that. The majority of what we see in our traffic wrecks happen on Highway 85, Virginia Avenue, Loop Road, and those areas, those main thoroughfares. I mean, you could imagine that. So of those, it's about 182 of our wrecks are on those main thoroughfares. And again, it's about 86 of them, leaving about 86 of them in our neighborhoods. When we see problems, we find trends in areas, that's where we send our resources. We do that not only with traffic, but we do it with the crime in the city as well. So we try to follow, all the events that are going on, and again, that's where we push our resources. So with that, you can see basically just based on the numbers alone that really 85, Virginia Avenue, North and South Central collectively, those are going to be the areas really that we're seeing the majority of the problems. I do have other numbers. We try to break them down by neighborhood, so we've got some numbers with that too, but just let me say that there's really not a whole lot of issues in our neighborhoods. So as we talk about these things, I feel it's important to bring up some of our processes. And we brought these out before in other times, but I want to just remind everybody that what I do as your traffic engineer is when I'm called to a problem, that is by you, one of you, many of you, it can be one person. If one person calls me and says, Chief, we're having a problem on this particular street, I'll send our staff out there. We start gathering the data. We have a traffic sign that we gather numbers, we gather speeds, and then we have officers that are out on the street gathering data as well. Things like stop sign violations and so on, and we compile a report based on that data. And based on the trend that we see, that's when we, as the police department, would bring something forward to the council to make a recommendation of a change. That process is also outlined in our city ordinances, and that's what guides me. It's got nothing to do with what people want. That's perfectly legitimate, but that's not our focus. That's not what we do. So I just wanted to toss that out there and let you all know, our process with that. So this includes things like our speed humps. In fact, our Title 41.3-1 actually references all of our traffic calming measures. That's how we as a city, by council order, by ordinance, say that we handle our traffic concerns. And thus far, that's what we do. So I think we're starting into a process to where, as a city, we're looking at other ways and means of bringing these out. Again, perfectly legitimate if that's what people want. I think that's something that the council should hear. But again, our process, as it relates to the police department, is by ordinance only. So, okay. So going over again, I've shared with you some of the statistics of traffic, but I wanted to share with you a little bit too about some of the issues that we are having around the city. So again, I'm bringing this back to January. So between January and today, we have seen a decrease in our entering autos. I think those of y'all that remember last year, I think I was a broken record coming to you, letting you know, look, we're having a lot of car break-ins. And we know that it's been young juvenile offenders, they're very organized. But right now, as it looks, we're actually seeing the trend reverse on that, so I'm very happy to report that to you. The same with stolen cars. Stolen cars have gone down. We've kind of held those at bay most of the year. So that's actually, that's been a very positive thing for us as well. Burglaries, honestly, we've just not seen a lot of problems with burglaries this entire year. I mean, we've seen numbers from as much as 8 in a month, and we're down to 3, which is still unacceptable, but overall, we were seeing much higher numbers in the past. So what are we doing about all this? Now, as far as the police department goes, our proactive activities, our citations right now, as of this year, are 3,433 citations to date. That's from, again, January till today. So our officers are actually out there being proactive in responding to the situations that we see. I guess I was mentioning some of the other issues that we're seeing around the city because, frankly, that has, and honestly, in my opinion, should be our concern as a city. Some of the other things that are happening, because again, we're just not seeing the number of traffic problems, traffic accidents, and other violations that cause great concern. Now, that's not to say they're not happening, all right? We know, we recognize that on our streets, people are running stop signs. They are speeding, although our reports would show the speeders are not in high numbers. They're actually, overall, the minority of all offenses are all travelers throughout our city. So I say to that, I guess, you know, to me, as your traffic engineer, as your chief of police, our focus has been, and right now, in my opinion, we need to continue on the other issues that are causing concern. Again, the entering autos, the burglaries that happen, and at the same time, whenever there are traffic problems, we need to respond and stand in those as well. But again, I brought out our process for that by ordinance, and I just ask respectfully that we all consider that, and if that process is not the ticket, this is something that I would look to the council and say, maybe this is something we should change. So anyway, I just wanted to toss that out there to you and let you all know where I stand on that. So with that, does anybody have any particular questions for me?
Would you run what did you say about speeders?
I'm sorry, about speeders? Speeders in particular? That we're not seeing an overwhelming number of speeders. That whenever we conduct a study on any particular street thus far, the numbers are coming back and not in great volume. And I know that's a contrast to some of the perception that's out there. I know people see and recognize, they feel that there's speeders on the street, which is an issue that we as a city need to respond to. But quite honestly, that to me is a different response than the reality of speeding. So we need to change that perception.
When you do a study on the street, how long is your equipment out there or in place?
I try to get a sample of no less than 7 days. Sometimes it's even 14 days, but typically a week to 2 weeks.
Okay, well, we all live on those streets every
Right.
day.
Absolutely.
And you've got the car, which I would think you take your tickets from because you write the tickets for speeding. And then you've got the not car, which is what we all do. So
Right.
with all that said, I hope that any study where you normally leave equipment out for 2 weeks, that is taken into consideration when people who live on the streets tell you there's a problem. Just like down at the ballpark, if you did a study in November and December at the ballpark, you're not going to get anything near the results that you can get if you did it in June and July. So,
Fair enough, absolutely. Well, that's why we do rely on you. We rely on the citizens to let us know if the problem is continuing. So we'll go out there and we grab a sample, and that's true. It's just a sample. But the sample is, based on the numbers. We try to run our sign with the display and then without the display. So we try to make sure that we're getting a true and fair representation of the traffic that's going through there.
well, yes, but what I'm saying is that overall, you've got someone living 365 days
Sure.
here on the street, and from where I sit, that should be given more consideration. Not just one person, but when you have a number of people telling you there is a problem here. It shouldn't be, no, there is not a problem there because we put this equipment out there for 2 weeks and we're not getting it. So,
Well, that's fair, and that's why I mentioned the perception of people. That's legitimate. I mean, that is true. So the response to the perception, to me, is something related, but distinctly different than what we're seeing in reality. Now, I say that to say the numbers, and I'm not being critical, or I'm not trying to, counter the perception. We have to address that. I do agree. That definitely needs to change. But again, the numbers that we're seeing are just not. And I respectfully say, and we all do it, for those of you that have gone through our Citizen Police Academy, one of the things that we do is we will bring you out to the street, and we'll actually bring a laser out there, and then we'll have you determine how fast the car is going. That's part of our training. So, and quite honestly, me, as the chief of police, I'm not out working laser right now. I honestly would not dare go out and try to gauge. That's actually a part of how we cite people based on this. We have to determine that they are speeding to a certain degree of speed. We have to actually be able to calculate that visually. And it takes quite a bit of time. It's overtime when we're doing this. So we're using the device and we're correlating that number into our memory with what this is. So it's not an easy thing to do, honestly, to determine speeds just visually. It really takes a device. Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, can we ask you to come down? I'm going to take the mic to you, but can you come down after? I know, because you got a lot of folks, so I'll come to you. How about that? I'll come to you, because these are really questions we make sure everybody hears, okay?
I'm a senior, and so I don't drive. I do a lot of walking here in Hapeville. So I was wondering, could that cross time be increased from 17 seconds to 60 seconds? Because it's just not enough time to get across the street now that I'm a senior. And I'm sure not only I would benefit from that, but their parents with children and strollers, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, ma'am. So if I understand your question correctly, it's a specific crosswalk or just all of our crosswalks with lights?
North Fulton and Central Avenue.
Okay.
You know,
North Fulton.
going across the railroad
Yes,
tracks.
ma'am.
That's
Okay.
one, but then I don't know, maybe there are others too.
Okay. Well, I will definitely take a look at that. We'll talk to community service. I'm sure that's something that we can probably make a change readily. So, yeah, well, I'll take a look at it. Thank you.
If I could ask you, when y'all ask a question, if you would, please state your name for the record, because we are keeping minutes of this tonight, so that would be helpful.
Hi, I'm Joan Shorter. When you said the majority of the accidents and incidents are over Virginia Avenue and 85, do you have any data on whether those involved are residents of Hapeville or people from outside the area? Because if it's all mainly outside the area, then I think then the traffic study would benefit from having some more signage, more visible signage, something. Because especially the crossing at Myrtle and North Central, you know, over the tracks, the people do not, people who live here and don't live here don't always know to merge or yield, excuse me, to the people crossing the tracks.
Absolutely. It's a great question. In fact, that specific location you're referring to, we have seen a significant number of wrecks, of our wrecks, a significant number of them were in that area. And the answer to your question, yes, I can find that information. I would respond, but it's anecdotally right now. But I will say that yes, most of the wrecks that we see in the city actually do involve our residents other than in the business districts. So again, a lot of those numbers that we see, they're going to be in parking lots of a lot of businesses and owners and so on. So, but yeah, we can certainly pull the data. I mean, if that's something we'd like to see.
Well, I just thought it would be valuable insight. If it's more residents, is it because people are so comfortable with going around the small city that Hapeville is? Or if it's non-residents, does signage need to be more visible? That was the only reason I was asking.
Absolutely. Well, if I might just touch the signage one moment. The signage issue, and I've heard recently, in fact, we need as a city to do a survey of all of our signs, because I'm hearing things like some of the signs are covered, the speed limit signs and so on. That's kind of an ongoing process. Community service does a great job with that. So all we really need to do is have a list of those signs, and we put it out to them, and it's probably literally a day, maybe two, that they get out there and they get those things knocked down. So I'll take a look at the signs as well. Absolutely. Yeah.
Good evening, Chief. Laura Murphy. I would like to know, when you changed the speed limits around the schools from 15 to 25, was that mandated, or did you choose to do that? Because it really should be back to 15 around the schools.
So, yeah, great question. That actually was mandated by Judge Barron at the time. So we were, as you know, I'm sure you all see us out there, we typically try to run laser at that location. And we were challenged on a couple of those citations. Judge Barron at the time came back and he said, it's unlawful. He said, I will not enforce 15 miles an hour. He said, the minimum that you can post is 25 miles an hour. And that's when the change happened.
So do we only ticket people going 10 miles over the speed limit? Or 5 miles, 3 miles in a school zone? What do you ticket for?
So we can actually cite in a school zone for any speed, any limit over the limit. But typically, we're trying to solve problems, so there's an educational process. If people are new to the area, maybe a parent, I'm sorry, I think that's me, or if they're new to the area, then, yeah, we'll try to give some warnings. But, yeah, no, typically, we're citing in pretty significant numbers over there to make sure everybody's safe.
Of course, in the school zones, I think more stop signs would help slow things down too, especially by St. John's. You could pile in the stop signs and that will stop the speeders.
Let me say one thing too. These are really great questions, I like them. But with the follow-up questions, you guys will have a chance to talk about in your groups about what might be some possible solutions. And that's something to keep in mind too when you're answering your questions, because you'll get a chance to talk about solutions.
You good? Here we go. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Chief, Lucy Dolan here. I just wondered if you had had a chance to review the brief that the homeowners associations had given about the traffic study that we had done, the informal study.
Yes, ma'am. I just had the opportunity yesterday, actually, to review that. So I looked at that. I understood a lot of that had issues with signage and so on. So we're going to take a close look at that. Like I mentioned, as far as the signs go, we'll take that list to community services, and they knock those things out very quickly. So we'll make sure all those are in order.
Thank you. I'm going to come back here and I'll come back up.
Howdy, Walter. I'm new back into Hapeville, but I wasn't aware until I got a neighbor about the study, and I didn't see anything about Victoria Lane, which is over by St. Joe's. And now that I have a new grandbaby on that street, I watch people do 35 and 40 down that road after they drop the kids off. So if we're looking at traffic patterns, that would be one that I don't know if it was represented, but I definitely think it needs to be looked at.
Absolutely. Be glad to take a look at it. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Chief. Larry Martin. Ever since January, I know there's been a lot of attention towards the traffic issue, and my question at this point in time would be, since that time, has there been an identification of any trend that would indicate a lessening of the speeding offenses that's in the areas of concern?
So, again, being somewhat frank here, we weren't seeing the data to support a speeding trend to begin with. So the answer would be, we're still not, but I'm glad to look at any street, even we'll look the street over again. So I guess the short answer would be no, but in fairness too, we've not necessarily circled back. We're trying to go street by street with our survey. Right now, unless somebody calls in an issue like Victoria, I'm going to make sure we go there quickly. But we're starting at the north side of the city, and we're going to work our way south and try to cover every street and gather as much data as we can. Did that answer your question, or was that?
Somewhat fair enough. I mean, it's been a a big topic for quite a while, and I didn't know if, since you and your department had identified that as a possible place that y'all need to focus some extra attention on, and if there was that attention, if it ended up identifying a trend of, we had, say, for example, so many speeding offenses in January and February, and at this point in time, if those offenses were less.
Yes, sir. Well, fortunately,
Because I know that y'all have certainly had, you know, a certain amount of input to monitor that area, and in doing so, I would hope that if that was done, then the offenses would have gone down.
fair enough. But can I ask you, what are you referring to, a specific location or just overall our studies versus?
Well, I know that the residents in the Virginia Park area were very concerned in that area, and as a good example of the, you know, success of the efforts of the police department, to get a handle on that, if it was, the trend was going down in speeding violations. But from what you're saying, it sounds like
Yes, sir.
there wasn't enough to
We haven't
focus
had
on it
any,
to begin with.
we haven't had any complaints. I will say since then, we have not received, in the police department, we've not received one complaint in there. In fact, in that particular area, as I mentioned before, and we re-looked at the numbers, we've not had an accident over there either. So some of our quantifiers with making a determination of a change would be related to safety. And again, that to me correlates directly with a speeding and then of course speed traffic accidents. And we're just not seeing those in patterns.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, let's do this. Are there some folks over here that have some questions too on that side of the room? Let me see, you got a couple over here. All right, couple back there. Okay, I'm gonna take these on this side, I'm gonna work over there. Let's see where we are time-wise, okay? And remember when you ask the questions, these are some great questions, you're gonna have time to talk about solutions. So stick to like questions that maybe some clarifying questions for him or some things that you really need to know so when you start your other part of the process. Here you go, sir.
Thank you. Joseph Sugar. In speaking to other neighbors, there's been a bit of a request for speed bumps throughout the area. How effective have speed bumps been through your studies? I know there was a study on the west side of town, I believe, or rather on the east side of town. And the second question, and this might actually go towards the council members and mayor as well, is if speed bumps are effective, what is the cost to the city to install speed bumps in many of the areas that citizens have been requesting speed bumps? Because quite frankly, a stop sign can only do so much because people run stop signs all the time. On Oakdale Road, we have a stop sign, but people still run that. But if we had speed bumps there, then that would at least hopefully force them to slow down and then maybe notice the signage.
Well, that's a great question. And I know this is probably the focus of where a lot of people are going with the speed humps and the speed bumps. But I first have to bring us back, again, in my opinion, and again, it's based on the data, we're not seeing the speeding, okay? So it's, again, perception versus what we're seeing in the numbers of reality. So are they effective? They can be effective.